Well, getting rid of my rabbits. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Rednecked video. Again, my name is Chris, and if you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, deck, your garage, or even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. And you heard me right, I'm getting rid of my rabbits. Not for good, but it's just time to get rid of these guys. They're getting old. They're too old really to be producing anymore. The buck's still probably got some time left. He could probably still produce several more litters, maybe another year, maybe 2 years. I'm not real sure exactly how old he is, but the doe is done for sure. Her last attempt at breeding, she ended up, the last 2 attempts were pretty rough. The last one in particular, she didn't have her babies on time. It was about a week late, and she only had one really oversized kit that was, it was dead upon arrival. So she's done. She's too old. I knew she was an older doe when I got her, and I've had her for a long time, several years myself. So she's done breeding. It's no sense in even trying to breed her anymore. I'm going to find somebody that wants to keep her as maybe a pet or something for the last, she's probably got another year or 2 at least left to live, but there's no sense in me just feeding her out for a year or 2 for no reason. I'm going to find somebody that hopefully wants a pet rabbit and can take her in and give her a good life for the last, couple of years of her life. She's done a good job for me, and she's pretty easy to deal with. She's pretty mellow. She doesn't really like to be picked up or anything, but she doesn't mind touching and petting a little bit. You may not be able to see that, but anyway, she doesn't mind any of that as long as she doesn't have babies in there with her when it's going on. She is pretty crazy when she has babies. But anyway, so that brings up the topic of today's video. I'm on the search for new rabbits. So what kind of breed of rabbit am I looking for? Or what breed of rabbit should you be looking for? There's lots of choices out there for good meat rabbits. So I'm going to run through a few of these breeds. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons. If there are any cons, there's really not that many to any of these. And we're going to talk about maybe what you should be looking at as far as whenever you're looking for new meat rabbits. All right, so let's start off with a couple of the more obscure breeds before we get to the ones that I have right now. So a couple of the breeds that you might look at for meat rabbits would be one that comes to mind is a silver fox. I don't currently have a silver fox. I did have one at one time, but it's been a long time ago. The silver fox is a heritage breed of meat rabbit. It's fairly rare, not incredibly rare. You can find them if you look for them. But if you can get a purebred silver fox rabbit, they're considered a dual purpose rabbit. So they produce a good fur, a really nice soft coat, and a good meat yield as well. They're built for meat rabbits. So they are a fantastic choice if you're looking for meat rabbits and you want something that's maybe a little bit more unusual, a little bit not everybody has. A really nice looking rabbit to a lot of people. They're all black with kind of a silver tip to their fur, which kind of resembles the silver fox, the Arctic fox, pelt itself, where they got the name silver fox. As far as cons for this breed go, I don't really know that there are any major cons. I can tell you from my personal experience, the one silver fox doe that I had, her litters were not that big. She produced around 7 to 8 rabbits per litter, where you can normally get 9 to 10 out of a better breed of meat rabbit. Now that could have been specific to that one rabbit too, the genetics of that one rabbit. They're typically going to be the adults 9 pounds, 7 to 9 pounds, somewhere right around in there. So they're just a little bit smaller than like a California or a standard New Zealand white, but they do produce great results. You're going to get fast grow outs with them. You're going to get pretty good results with breeding them and getting, where am I going with this? My words are getting all tongue-tied. You're going to get a rabbit that grows out fairly fast. So you're looking at probably about 10 weeks before they get up to processing size, which is about 5 pounds, somewhere right around in there. So they are a great choice for a meat rabbit. Lots of people talk about silver foxes and talk about how docile they are, how easy they are to handle, but then you're going to see just as many people talk about how their silver foxes were just a little bit crazy, a little neurotic, a little not easy to handle, were very skittish and didn't like to be touched, didn't like to be handled at all. But then again, that can happen with any rabbit in any breed. So take that with a grain of salt. They're a great choice if you're looking for a meat rabbit. Another lesser known breed that is not really necessarily comes to the top of mind whenever you think about meat rabbits is chinchillas. Now, American chinchilla is a great option for a meat rabbit. If you're looking for a meat rabbit that is both cute and produces good results for meat production. They do, they're typically around 9 to 10 pounds. All of these rabbits I'm going to be talking about are for the most part around the 9 to 10 pound range when they get full grown. You're usually going to be processing younger rabbits when they're somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks old, depending on your rabbits. When they get to be about 5 pounds, that's about when you're usually going to be processing them for meat, for fryers. That's a general consensus. And chinchillas, they fall right in line with that as well. You're going to get babies that probably grow out to about 5 pounds, somewhere around 9 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, somewhere right around in there. So they are a great choice for a meat rabbit. Adorable. The babies that I had one chinchilla doe, and the babies that she had were the cutest bunny rabbits I have ever seen. Just adorable. So there's only really 2 cons that I can think of with the chinchilla. They have incredibly soft fur, which is not a con. They're incredibly adorable rabbits. They're very cute, very attractive rabbits. That's not a con either until it comes time to process them. It's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit hard to process a rabbit that is just so adorable and so cute and, just a nice looking rabbit. It's tough to do. My doe was incredibly docile, very mellow, very easy to deal with. So I didn't have any of those problems with her, which again, the babies were the same way, and that made it a little bit hard to go to process them too, because it's a little bit easier to process the rabbit when they're a little bit crazy and they irritate you a little bit whenever you go to get them out of the cage. It just makes it a little bit simpler. Hopefully that makes sense. You understand what I'm talking about. The only other con I can think of, and this may be specific to certain rabbits and not necessarily to chinchillas in general, but my experience when I had a chinchilla and the babies were incredibly prone to nest box eye, which is an infection that they get when they're young and still in the nest box. So I had a lot of problems with them getting eye infections. Now it's pretty easy to treat. Chamomile tea, just brew it in some honey with some honey in the glass and use that tea bag to kind of wipe their eyes out and clean their eyes out a little bit. You have to do that about every other day, and it kind of clears up on its own. So it wasn't really a big deal. It's just a little bit more work than what it is with some of the other meat rabbits I've owned. All right, so another breed that you may want to look at is a Florida White. Now this is a smaller rabbit, but if you're a smaller family, only 2 or 3 people in the family, and you don't really care about getting huge rabbits, Florida White may be a great choice for you. They are a smaller breed. They only get usually around 8 pounds full grown. So the babies are not going to get quite as big, quite as fast, but they eat a lot less than some of the bigger breeds like New Zealand's and Californias and silver foxes and chinchillas, some of those 10-pound rabbits. They eat a lot less, so they're a little bit cheaper to keep. They are considered a great meat rabbit. They've got a good bone to meat ratio, and you're going to get pretty fast grow outs with a Florida White. So it's a great option for a meat rabbit if you're a smaller family or you're not looking for huge amounts of meat. They can be a great option for you. All right, so those are a handful of the kind of little bit obscure breeds. Palomino's another one that's considered a pretty good meat rabbit. I don't have personal experience with Palominos, but they are considered to be a great meat rabbit that get fast grow outs. You're going to get probably decent litter sizes out of them. They're about like the others, about 9 to 10 pounds full grown. They're going to have fairly large litters. They're going to grow out well. They've got a good bone to meat ratio. I think I may have said some of those things twice, but they are considered a great meat rabbit breed. I don't have personal experience with them, and I don't know of any cons to speak of that. Now I want to move on to probably the 2 most popular breeds of meat rabbits in America, and they're popular for a good reason. You've got California, which is what my buck is over here. The California is an all-white rabbit, red eyes, but they've got the brown or black markings on their nose, their ears, and their feet. You may be able to see that, you may not be able to in the video. It's a little bit far away, but this is my California buck right here. He's a great buck. Very easy to deal with, and performs incredibly well every single time. They're slightly smaller than a New Zealand, and New Zealand White is the other breed that I was going to talk about. The most popular probably of all meat rabbits in America anyway is the New Zealand White, and that is my doe. I think she's probably a mix actually, but they're all going to look just about like this. You've got pure white rabbit, no other markings on them, red eyes. The rabbits are going to be probably around 10 to 11 pounds full grown. somewhere right around in there. The bucks tend to be a little bit smaller than the does, but they're still going to be somewhere right around 10 to 11 pounds when they're full grown. Now, the reason that these two are probably the most common in America is because they've been bred specifically for meat for decades, and they've been the most popular for a long, long time, which means the genetics have been perfected in a sense over time. If you get a good purebred New Zealand white or a good purebred California, you're going to get really nice litter size. It's not uncommon for them to produce litters of 10 to 12 babies and be able to rear them all. Sometimes you can even get bigger counts in your litters, and they grow out fast. If you get a good quality New Zealand white and you breed her and you get a nice large litter, 10 to 11 babies, you're going to count on them being at 5 pounds in 8 weeks. And that's really helpful. If you got a rabbit that produces babies that takes a little bit longer to grow out, up to 12 weeks, for example, that's a whole nother month of feeding those babies out before they're ready to process. So the New Zealand whites, the Californias, they both kind of fall into the same group to me. Both of them, super fast grow outs, big litter size. They're great mothers. They generally do a really nice job of taking care of them. Now, there's exceptions to every rule, and you're going to get some individuals that are not up to par. But again, if you get good bloodlines, you get good pedigree rabbits from them, it's hard to beat a New Zealand white or a California. And if you're really looking for nothing more than just meat production in your backyard, I suggest get one of each. A purebred New Zealand white, a purebred California, and you crossbreed them because you get what they call hybrid vigor. When you crossbreed two purebred rabbits together, that first offspring has that hybrid vigor. Now, you could technically do that with any of the breeds we've talked about, a New Zealand white and a silver fox, a California buck and a chinchilla male, or chinchilla doe, whatever. However you want to do it. You could do that with any of them. But when you're dealing with New Zealand whites and Californias, you're typically going to get slightly larger litter size, and you're typically going to get a slightly faster grow out. That hybrid vigor really, it really is a thing. That first level of offspring from those two purebred rabbits crossbred together typically is very disease resistant, has very few issues at all. Now, that doesn't necessarily hold true when you take that mixed breed and breed it back to another rabbit, but that first level of offspring, that hybrid vigor, is a real thing. If you are looking to sell some rabbits and maybe pay for some of your feed, again, Californias and New Zealands are probably your best choice, but I would go with purebred, both the same species, or both the same breed, I should say. So 2 New Zealands, 2 Californias, however you want to do it, it doesn't really matter so much. But because those are the most popular breeds in America for meat rabbits, if you're looking to sell rabbits, those are going to be the ones that are going to be easiest to sell. Most people are going to be looking for a California or a New Zealand. Probably a New Zealand is probably your top choice. California is very close second though. So if you are looking to sell, these are the 2 breeds I would go with. Now, there is some thought that like a silver fox, for example, is a heritage breed that is a little bit rare and a little bit hard to find. So they typically command a slightly higher price whenever you go to sell them. It's just the market's not necessarily as big. It depends a little bit on what your market is in your area as well. Around here, I don't see a lot of silver fox. There are a few here and there. And most people are not looking for silver fox when they're looking for meat rabbits. They're looking for New Zealand's or California's. So you may be able to command a higher price from the silver fox, but you may not be able to actually sell the silver fox as well as you can sell some of the other breeds like California's and New Zealand's, just because if you go online and you search for what's the best breed of meat rabbit, you're going to find New Zealand white or California, and that's what most people are going to be looking for. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. You understand what I'm talking about. So there's a couple of reasons why you might want to focus on one of these 2 breeds when it comes to raising meat rabbits yourself. Another nice thing about these is if you are looking at selling the pelts, these are not necessarily considered premium pelts when it comes to New Zealand whites or Californias for that matter, but they are in high demand when it comes to crafts and all kinds of different things that people would buy rabbit furs for, because they are pure white pelts. And those are a little bit more desirable than some of the other pelts, even though a Rex, I forgot to mention standard Rex, a standard Rex can be a great meat rabbit as well. And they are a dual purpose rabbit, nice fur, very nice fur, probably the standard when it comes to fur. And And they have good grow out rates as well. Now don't confuse that with a mini Rex. You want a standard Rex rabbit if you're looking for that. But anyway, back to the pelts. New Zealand whites, California is not necessarily considered a premium pelt, but they are all white. And that's what people are looking for when they're looking to buy pelts, because they can dye them any color they want to. And when it comes to some of the other colors, like a silver fox or a Rex or any of those kinds of things, it's hard to dye a black fur any other color but black. So these are what you're looking for if you're looking to sell pelts or any of those kinds of things. Now remember, when you're selling pelts, you're probably going to be selling them from your young rabbits that are being processed at 8 weeks old, something like that. So they're not going to be the top of the line pelts. Those are not going to be from adult rabbits that have good, thick, heavy pelts. These are going to be from younger rabbits. So the furs are usually going to be used for more like craft purposes, lining gloves, some of those kinds of things, not for making like clothing and blankets and those kinds of things. But the white rabbit fur, that's what most people are going to be looking for. It's in a little bit higher demand than some of the others, even though some of the other furs out there are much nicer when it comes to texture and feel and all those kinds of things. White wins out because it can be dyed any color you want. So anyway, I just kind of rambled on there a little bit. I probably should have put this down in a little bit more of an organized list, but hopefully this gave you some kind of idea of what you may be looking for when it comes to meat rabbits. So what am I looking for? I'm personally looking for Tamuk rabbits. And Tamuks are a breed of New Zealand white. They're just a little bit more heat tolerant. They come from Texas A&M University. They're a little bit more heat tolerant, so you can breed them a little bit later in the year during the summer, which I typically do not do, but those are the ones that I'm looking for myself. So New Zealand whites, that's what I'm looking for. And I am looking for purebred New Zealand white Tamuks. I may end up just going with New Zealand whites. I may not be able to find Tamuks because they've been kind of hard to find lately. But I'm planning on, and who knows if this will work out or not, but what I'm planning on doing is replacing both my buck and my doe with 2 New Zealand whites, maybe 4. I may get 2 bucks and 2 does that are unrelated. That way, and I can breed them together. I can get offspring, and I can sell purebred New Zealand white. And the biggest reason I want to do that is because it seems like there is a gap in the market for this. And this brings up another point I want to talk about real quick. I almost wrapped up this video and forgot completely to talk about it, but when you're sourcing your rabbits, make sure they're purebred if you can. It's really a big problem, at least around here with New Zealand whites especially, for them to be crossbred with Flemish giants. Now, it's not uncommon for them to be crossbred with Californias, and that's not a problem, but when they're crossbred with a Flemish, and I'm pretty sure that's what my doe right here is crossed with a Flemish, it's less than desirable results. All my experience with anything that has Flemish blood in it is that you're going to end up with much slower grow out rates from your babies. The bone to meat ratio is not nearly as good. They tend to have much more bone and a little bit less meat, even though they are a much larger. Flemish giants are huge rabbits, 30-pound rabbits. They get great big, but their bone to meat ratio is not very good at all, and their grow out rate's incredibly slow. Whenever she has her babies, my doe right here, it takes them a good 12 weeks to get up to processing size. They grow really slow. They eat a whole lot of food. It's just not the most efficient rabbit I've ever seen. So I would stay away from Flemish at all costs. For some reason, everybody thinks because they're a bigger rabbit that they're going to be a better meat rabbit, but they're really not. And it's really common, again, at least around here, to see New Zealand's crossed with Flemish. Stay away from those. You want purebred New Zealands. Try to find a reputable breeder that has pedigrees on them if you can. So anyway, back to what I was saying. That's the reason I am looking for purebred New Zealand whites, preferably Tamuks, so I can breed them and sell the offspring and fill that hole in the market. Because when I look for rabbits around here, almost every rabbit I find is a crossbreed of some kind. I can find some purebred New Zealand whites, or so they say, but it's hard. Most of the time what I'm finding is crossbreeds. And I think there needs to be somebody out there to be able to offer up some purebred rabbits for people that are looking to start their own rabbitry. Now again, if all you're breeding for is meat, you don't plan on selling any at all, then there's no reason you shouldn't get one of one breed, one of another breed, and crossbreed them together. I've done that for years, had great success with it, but I want to be able to fill the hole in the market there, offer some people that are looking to get started with meat rabbits good quality breeding stock, because I think it's hard to find around here. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. So a little bit of a maybe jumbled up video today. trying to address a topic that was brought up. I know I didn't talk about a lot of cons of the different breeds of rabbits, which was specifically what the viewer told me, asked me to kind of cover, but there's not really a lot of cons to them. Most of the meat rabbits are going to be fine. You're going to run into individuals in any breed that are a little bit crazy, a little bit difficult to deal with. No exception to New Zealand whites, even though I tout them as being such a great meat rabbit. The does can be hard to handle. What I usually find is that bucks are usually pretty mellow and easy to handle. All my New Zealand bucks, my California bucks, any buck I've ever had has usually been fairly mellow, fairly easy to handle. The does can sometimes be a little bit crazy, a little bit don't want to be handled, don't want to be messed with, sometimes a little temperamental. It just varies by rabbit, so you never know. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Hopefully you got something useful out of that. Thank you guys for sticking with me through this whole thing. Listen to me ramble on for a while. Thank you for watching, and as always, God bless.